That's a thing about the first time that I met Kathy. A lot of people, that's the heat that this movie is going to draw, is people are going to say, well, what you're doing is promoting prostitution or you're glamorizing prostitution. No, it is not. It's about an era. And they're going to say, well, you've got girls out there that are being mistreated and abused and abducted and this and that and the other. That is this time. That was not that time. To give you an example of the difference in the girls, the first time that Kathy came to my office, she came in and introduced herself, and I said, Kathy, how can I help you? And she said, I'm having money problems. And then she caught herself and she said, not making money, but putting it to work. And she said, I do exactly the same things that a streetwalker does, except I do it in a penthouse. They've got their way, I've got my way. My way is better. She said, I look at myself like any professional athlete. I've got a certain number of productive years, and then it's over. She said, what I've learned is that the need and demand for sex is constant, and it's one of the few things that can survive any recession. She said, I look at myself like an expensive trophy wife. She said, I have clients that take care of their wives because they have to. They take care of me because they want to. And then she changed gears on me. She said, I'm in college, I'm a senior, I'm carrying a double major, psychology and business administration, just what every successful madam needs. She said, after I take a well-deserved 3-week vacation, after I graduate, I'm coming back to Atlanta and I'm going to open a bordello in Ansley Park. And she said, I want you to represent me. She said, in the meantime, I have $385,000 in cash hidden, not in a bank, and I want you to put it to work for me. That was how I met Kathy. So you can make a comparison between that kind of woman and the kind you see now out on the street. There's a whole world of difference. 22, when she finished from school, and she went in, but see, during school, she had been working, because she told me, she said, I started out, she said, I've worked truck stops. She said, I've worked a thing called a lockup, which is what they have in Nevada. You go in and you sign up for a specific number of weeks, and they literally lock you up. If you want to go shopping, the haberdashers bring stuff to your place where you're working. But she said, I've worked lockup. She said, I've worked truck stop. She said, I've worked as a bar girl. And she said, now I work as a call girl. And she said, I'm ready to graduate. So she had a background. She had been working since she was probably 16, but had finished up high school and had put herself through college. Big Kathy spelled her name with a K. Little Kathy spelled hers with a C, but they were proportionately big and small. Big Kathy was probably 5, I'm going to say 5, 10, or 11, and little Kathy was probably 5, 6. But that was how I kept them segregated in my mind, was because Big Kathy and Little Kathy. But they were both smart as whips. They had gone out to Vegas one time, supposedly on a vacation, and Kathy had bought a brand new set of luggage. And she said, while we're out there, we may turn a few tricks. And I said, well, you're going into somebody else's backyard. Let me make some phone calls and see that if that's okay. So I had a friend named Harold Krause that was, I think, he's gone now, but he was at Caesars. And I called him. He said, yeah, it'll be fine. He said, I'll send a car to pick him up. And he said, just I'll bring him to my office and talk to him for a few minutes. And he said, it's okay, but there's certain rules. He said, it's like ground rules. I said, sure. So anyway, Kathy called me and said, we're doing great. And then she threw me a curve. She said, oh, by the way, I got to buy another set of luggage. And I said, I don't understand that, Kathy. I said, you just bought a brand new set of luggage. She said, yeah, but we've made so effing much money, we need another suitcase. And I said, okay, swell. But that was the story on the two Cathys.
Okay.
He said, I never thought about that, but he said, you're right.